You'd probably freeze if someone broke in here, I teased, laughing as I tossed a pillow at his chest. He smiled at first, soft like always, but something in his eyes flickered. And then, silence. A strange, suffocating kind of silence I didn't expect from such a harmless joke. He didn't laugh with me this time. He just looked at me like I'd said something I couldn't take back. That was the night everything began to shift, not visibly, not dramatically, just slowly, like frost creeping across a window pane. But before that, before the silence, before the flicker, we were perfect. I met Jackson in the waiting area of a passport office, of all places. I remember because it was hot, I was annoyed, and the overhead fan kept clicking like a broken clock. I was sitting cross-legged on the hard plastic seat, flipping through Instagram with one earbud in when someone sat beside me and said, "You look like you're planning a very dramatic escape." I glanced over, half smiling, about to ignore him like I always did with random flirty strangers. But there was something different. He wasn't trying to be charming, he was just quietly amused. Like he wasn't desperate to impress anyone, just observing life with those calm, tired eyes. I laughed despite myself. Just escaping this bureaucracy. He smiled again, and that was it, the first crack in my usual wall. I didn't realize that a conversation about passport photos and travel dreams would become the foundation of a love story that would feel like it came from an indie film. The kind with moody lighting, handwritten notes, and two people who didn't quite fit anywhere, except with each other. Jackson was soft-spoken, the kind of man who listened more than he talked, who brewed tea instead of buying coffee, who read poetry not to impress, but because it slowed down his racing thoughts. He had a scar near his right brow, a soft white line that he said came from falling off his bike when he was 9. He still rode sometimes, especially late at night, said the quiet helped him breathe. He was sensitive in a way most men weren't. When he touched me, it was gentle, like he was afraid of breaking something. The first time he kissed me, he paused with his lips near mine and whispered, "You don't have to pretend to be tough with me." That broke me a little, in the best way. I had always been the strong one, the opinionated one, the one who made the plans, fixed the messes, held the weight. And suddenly, here was this man, not demanding strength or submission, but offering softness. I didn't even know how much I needed it. Our relationship unfolded like slow music, steady, careful, deeply intimate. Sunday mornings were spent barefoot in the kitchen, dancing to old Hindi songs while making masala omelets. He'd steal cherry tomatoes from my chopping board just to hear me scold him. Every night, he'd tuck the blanket around my feet because I always forgot and woke up cold. He started calling me Junoon, obsession, not in a possessive way, in a poetic one. Like I was his wildness in a world he didn't quite know how to survive. And I loved him deeply, almost too much. I remember the night he gave me the necklace. It wasn't flashy, just a thin silver chain with a tiny compass charm. "So you always find your way back to me," he said, brushing my hair behind my ear. My eyes burned as I hugged him. He held me for a long time, his heartbeat steady against my cheek. "I feel safe with you," I told him that night, not even thinking twice. That was the thing. I didn't feel protected by him. I felt protected with him, like we were two tired souls who had finally put down our weapons and sat in peace. So when I teased him that night, weeks later, about being too soft, too passive, too gentle, I didn't expect it to matter. It was after a movie night. We'd just watched something with a dramatic home invasion scene. I curled into him on the couch and said playfully, "If that ever happened to us, I'd have to be the one swinging the bat." I grinned, nudged his shoulder. "You'd probably hide under the bed." He froze, just for a second, and then gave a small, polite laugh. But his body felt different, stiff, like a statue sculpted from quiet shame. "Do you really think that?" he asked softly. I blinked. "What?" "That I couldn't protect you?" I frowned, reaching for his hand. "Rayan, it was a joke. I didn't mean—" He nodded quickly, stood up, and muttered something about needing to clear his head. He took his jacket and left. I waited. Half an hour, texted, called. He didn't answer. It was just a joke, wasn't it? But that night I lay in bed alone, my fingers playing with the compass necklace he gave me, wondering, why did that hurt him so much? Why did he look like I'd confirmed something he'd feared all along? I didn't know it then, but that night was a turning point. Not loud, not dramatic, just a single sentence said in jest that quietly rewrote everything. I thought he'd come back that night. He always did. We'd had little fights before, over laundry, dishes, timing, tone. He was quiet, not confrontational, but he never walked away for long. I waited on the couch until 2 a.m., the room dimly lit by the lamp we bought together from that little roadside bazaar on our honeymoon. The shadows danced across the walls, but his keys never jingled at the door. I finally curled up in bed alone, the cold side of the mattress haunting me like a question I couldn't answer. The next morning, he walked in like a ghost, not angry, not apologetic, just still. He set his keys in the bowl, took off his shoes, and walked straight into the shower. I followed him with my eyes, not sure whether to scream or cry or pretend nothing happened. I chose silence, the same silence he was cloaked in. When he finally emerged, hair wet, towel around his neck, he just whispered, "I didn't sleep." That was it. No accusations, no warmth either, just a statement, like weather. I didn't sleep. Neither did I, Rayan, neither did I. For a few days, we moved around each other like strangers stuck in a shared memory. He went to work early, came home late. When I asked how his day was, he gave short answers. Not rude, just restrained, like someone who was trying not to spill over. I noticed things, little shifts. He stopped playing our evening playlist while cooking. He stopped reminding me to take my iron supplements. He didn't reach for my hand under the blanket anymore. That one hurt the most. I missed his fingertips tracing lazy circles on my palm while we watched TV. It was our quiet language, the one that spoke when words didn't know what to say. Now even that was gone. One evening, I found him sitting on the floor in the guest room, surrounded by books he hadn't touched in months. I leaned on the doorway, arms folded, trying to sound casual. "Looking for something?" He looked up at me, startled. "No, just sorting through old things." His voice was distant, like he was translating thoughts from another language. "Want help?" I offered. He shook his head. "I'm okay." That was it. Not even a smile. I stood there for a few seconds longer, hoping he'd change his mind. He didn't. I walked away, biting my lip so I wouldn't ask, "Are you sorting through our memories too?" I started second-guessing everything. Was I the problem? Did that one joke unravel years of trust? Or had I touched something deeper, something he had buried beneath all that softness? I thought back to little moments, like the time he got jumpy when I reached for his phone to check the weather, or how he once froze during a movie when a father failed to defend his child. I thought it was empathy, but maybe it was guilt, or shame, or a wound I hadn't seen. But love makes you rationalize. Love tells you he's just tired, that it's just a phase, that he'll come back to you once the world calms down. I told myself that over and over. 2 weeks passed. We functioned. Groceries, bills, chores, all happened like clockwork. But there was no music, no dancing in the kitchen, no forehead kisses, no junoon. One Sunday, I made his favorite breakfast, spinach and cheese paratha with garlic yogurt dip. I placed it in front of him with a soft smile. He looked at the plate, then at me, and said, "You don't have to try so hard." I felt the breath leave my body. "I'm not trying, I'm just loving you." The words came out smaller than I intended, almost like a whisper I wasn't sure I should have said. He stared at the food for a moment, then stood up and walked away without touching it. I sat alone at that table for what felt like hours, The paratha went cold. So did I. That night, I cried in the shower. I let the water drown the sounds so he wouldn't hear me. I sat on the floor of the tub, hugging my knees, and wondered, how did we go from dancing barefoot to this silence? Was it really just one sentence that broke him, or had I never truly seen the cracks forming? I began noticing more things. He started taking long walks at odd hours. He'd stand on the balcony, staring into the street, phone clutched in his hand, but not always texting, just staring. Once I walked past him and saw the screen. He quickly locked it. When I asked who he'd been talking to lately, he said, "No one, just work stuff." But his voice cracked, barely, just enough to be noticed by someone who loved him. I didn't push, not then. I still believed in his gentleness. I still believed in us. One Thursday afternoon, I went to grab his jacket from the laundry basket. He'd left it there after coming home drenched in rain the night before. As I reached into the inner pocket, something fell out. A phone, not his, not the one I knew. It was black with a slightly cracked corner, no wallpaper, just a locked screen that showed one notification before it faded. "Are you okay? I miss you." The sender's name was just a heart emoji. My hands began to shake. I stared at the phone like it was a foreign object, like it didn't belong in my world, in my home, in my husband's jacket. My stomach knotted. I didn't open it. I couldn't. I just sat on the bed, phone in hand, mind unraveling. I had questions, 100 of them, but no voice to ask them. Was he cheating? Was it emotional? Was it someone from his past? Was it someone new? Was this the real reason he pulled away? I placed the phone back exactly where I found it. I told myself I needed more time, more signs, more proof. But deep inside, something had already broken. The compass necklace on my chest suddenly felt heavier, as if the direction I thought I knew was now lost. The phone haunted me for days. I couldn't sleep without imagining that screen lighting up again. The message, "Are you okay? I miss you," played on a loop in my head. I heard it when I stirred tea, when I folded laundry, when I tried to read. I should have confronted him right away, but I didn't. I waited. Because some part of me, the scared, naive part, hoped it wasn't what it looked like, that it was just a work contact, or a mistake, or a misunderstanding. But when someone stops loving you, their absence starts living in everything, in the way they close the door a little harder, in the way their fingers don't linger, in the way they say goodnight like they're clocking out. And I could feel it. Jackson wasn't just distant, he was gone. It was a Sunday afternoon, exactly 3 weeks after he first walked out on me. I was sitting at the kitchen table staring at a cup of tea I hadn't touched. Jackson walked in, humming something under his breath, which felt so bizarre I almost flinched. "You seem okay today," I said cautiously. He looked at me, startled, as if realizing I was still in this house, still in his life. "Yeah, just trying to reset." Reset, like we were a playlist or a phone. "Can I ask you something?" I asked, my voice softer than I expected. He paused mid-step. "Sure." I stood slowly, walked over to the laundry shelf where I had hidden the second phone. I didn't make a dramatic reveal. No throwing it at him, no screaming. I just placed it gently on the table between us like a dead bird. "Whose is this?" He stared at it. No flicker of surprise, no gasp, just stillness. That same cold stillness he'd been wearing like a second skin. "Where did you find it?" he asked. "Your jacket pocket." A long pause, his jaw tensed. He looked down, then slowly pulled out a chair and sat across from me. He didn't touch the phone, didn't offer an explanation. "Is she someone from before me?" I asked. He said nothing, just stared at the wood grain on the table. "Or during?" Still nothing. "Say something, Ryan, please." My voice cracked. My fingers trembled on the edge of the table. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff waiting for a push. He finally spoke, voice low, barely above a whisper. I didn't sleep with her. Not there is no her, just I didn't sleep with her. That's when my heart cracked, because I knew in that moment that whatever had happened, it wasn't innocent. Then what did you do? Tears blurred my vision. I blinked them back, trying to stay strong, trying not to beg. We talked, that's all, just talked. He said it like that made it better, like emotional betrayal wasn't a betrayal. Every day? He nodded. Since when? He hesitated, before the joke. That hit me harder than anything. So it wasn't the joke that pushed you away? No, but it broke something in me, because I already felt small, and then hearing it from you, his voice trailed off. I couldn't breathe. So you ran to someone else because I said something stupid? No, I ran because I already felt like I wasn't enough. And she made you feel like you were? Silence. I stepped back, my hands on my hips, pacing, trying to understand what I had done wrong, what I had missed. Why didn't you talk to me, Rayan? Why didn't you tell me you felt weak or small or whatever? I would have listened. I always did. Because every time I tried, you were so strong. You handled everything. You were everything, and I hated that I wasn't. I stared at him. This man I loved. This man I held in the darkest parts of my heart, and all I could think was, he resented me for being the very thing he loved me for. So you let her comfort you, and lied to me. I didn't lie, I just didn't tell you. That's worse. I wanted to scream, to throw things, but all I did was cry, not loudly, just quiet tears rolling down my cheeks while he watched without moving. You told her things you should have told me. I know. You let her be your safe space. I didn't mean to, but you did. The compass necklace burned against my skin. I reached up, unclasped it, and held it in my palm. You said this would always help me find my way back to you. I looked up at him, eyes brimming. But you're not there anymore, are you? He didn't answer, didn't beg, didn't fall to his knees and apologize like the movies taught us they would. He just stood there, quiet, broken, but not sorry enough. I walked past him, into the bedroom, pulled out my old duffel from the closet. I didn't pack, I just needed to touch it, to remind myself I still had choices. He followed me in, leaned against the doorframe. So this is it? His voice cracked. Finally. But it was too late. I don't know what this is, Rayan, but it's not love anymore. It is. It still is. Then why does it feel so cold? He took a step forward. I never stopped loving you. You just stopped loving me, right? My voice was barely a whisper now. Like if I spoke too loudly, I'd shatter completely. He didn't reply, just stared at the floor like he wished it could swallow him. I lay on the bed that night with my back to him. He didn't try to touch me, didn't try to fix it. He just lay there too, breathing shallow like a stranger beside me. I stared at the ceiling for hours, my fingers tracing the outline of the compass in my hand. It used to feel like home. Now it felt like a lie. The next morning he was gone, not just from the bed, from the apartment. His shoes were by the door, his keys missing from the bowl, and the second phone I'd found was gone too. There was no note, no message, just absence. And in a way, that was the loudest answer of all. I stood in the kitchen with the silence pressing in around me like fog. The kettle clicked off, the tea oversteeped, and I couldn't remember why I'd made it in the first place. My hands trembled as I poured it down the sink. The smell reminded me of all the mornings we used to share together, sleepy, slow, wrapped in each other's warmth. Now it just made my stomach turn. I didn't cry right away, not like I thought I would. I think part of me had been grieving this version of him for a long time, even before the second phone, even before the joke. The way he had slowly started slipping away without ever telling me he was leaving. But grief is tricky. It doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps in, through morning routines that suddenly feel empty, through shirts in the closet that still carry his scent, through toothbrushes side by side, through silence at dinner, through phantom touches that never come again. That first week, I went numb. I answered calls like a robot, told friends I was fine in texts I didn't mean. I still watered the plants, still lit the hallway lamp at night, still waited for footsteps that would never return. My heart, though? My heart felt like a mirror cracked down the center, still reflective, but fractured. One night, I found myself scrolling through old pictures, birthdays, road trips, that one rainy evening we'd spent playing Scrabble by candlelight because the power had gone out. He'd spelled eternity on the board. We both laughed, and I said, "Bold move." He grinned and replied, "I only use big words for you." That memory used to make me smile. Now it made me ache, because I finally realized he had always loved me in words, but never in action. And maybe that's why it hurt so much, because I believed the words, I held them like truth, I built my home on them. And when the actions failed to show up, when the effort stopped matching the promises, I stayed. I forgave. I over-explained. Because that's what women like me do when we think love is something we have to earn. But love isn't supposed to be earned, it's supposed to be given, freely, bravely, completely. Eventually, I told my sister everything. We sat on her couch with hot chocolate, wrapped in fuzzy blankets that smelled like vanilla and home. I broke down, finally. I told her about the phone, the silence, the way he looked at me like I had become a stranger. She didn't interrupt. She didn't offer cheap advice. She just held my hand. When I finished, she said softly, "You know, it's okay if you still miss him, but it's also okay if you don't want him back." That was the first time I breathed deeply in days. Because someone had finally said it, what I didn't know I needed to hear, that I was allowed to grieve someone I didn't want anymore, that healing wasn't about forgetting him, it was about remembering me. I started writing again, just small things, lines in a journal, thoughts I hadn't let myself feel in months. I gave him soft places to land and he still walked away. I didn't break him, I just stopped pretending I was okay with being broken. I was never too much, he was just too little. Some nights I still woke up reaching for him, my fingers grazing cold sheets, the ghost of his warmth fading fast. But those nights became fewer, and eventually I stopped checking the door around 6 p.m., the time he used to come home. Instead, I started coming home to myself. I lit candles, I played music again, I let the space fill with me. I took long walks, talked to strangers at bookstores, reconnected with old friends. I laughed without guilt, I cried without shame. I stopped asking why he did what he did, and started asking what I needed, what I deserved. The answer came one morning as I stood in front of the mirror, barefaced, wearing his old flannel shirt. I looked at myself and thought, you were never hard to love. He just didn't know how. A few weeks later, a letter arrived. No name on the envelope, but I knew his handwriting. I stared at it for hours before opening it. It was brief, apologetic, confused. He wrote that he didn't leave because I joked about his strength. He left because he had none left. He said he didn't know how to stay with someone who saw him so clearly, that it made him feel small, even when I never meant to make him feel that way. I read it once, then again, then I folded it and tucked it into the back of my journal, not as a keepsake, but as closure. Because I didn't need him to explain anymore. I just needed to forgive myself for staying as long as I did. People ask me now if I'm over him. And I smile. Because over is the wrong word. I grew past him. And there's a difference. I don't hate him. I don't wish him pain. I just hope he finds whatever softness he needs and learns not to run from it next time. As for me, I've started wearing the compass necklace again. Not because I want to find my way back to him, but because I'm finally learning how to find my way back to myself. Healing doesn't mean forgetting who hurt you. It means remembering who you were before they did and becoming her again, but wiser. To anyone reading this who's been broken by the person they trusted most, please know you are not hard to love. You just loved someone who wasn't ready. And that says nothing about your worth. Have you ever had to choose yourself over the person you thought you'd grow old with? Tell me in the comments. Let's heal out loud together.